Okay, good evening. Now is 6 o'clock, and I think we're ready to call the meeting to order. If we could please start with a roll call.
Vice Chair Garcia.
Present.
Jason Allen.
Present.
Christopher Caldwell. Wally Ferrara.
Present.
Ebony Hemphill.
Present.
Larry Tolbert.
Present.
So with all those board members attending, I would now like to close the current meeting and move on to the appeal hearing for this evening. The Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board will now hear the appeal related to PCR number 2023-0024. Do all members have a digital or printed copy of the appeal packet before or in front of you?
Yes.
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 Okay. Is there any member of the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board who is unable to render an unbiased opinion on this appeal due to a relational, financial, or other conflict of interest? The CIPS-RAB liaison will present a summary of the appeal this evening. I do apologize.
That's fine. Thank you, Vice Chair Garcia. Vice Chair and Board, October 26, 2023, Tammy Whetstone filed a PCR complaint with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. Ms. Whetstone's complaint alleged that an officer failed to serve her with a citation for which she now owes fines. She also alleged that the officer used rude, unprofessional, and discriminatory language against her. The complaint was assigned to Inspector Chuck Mason from the Office of Professional Standards for investigation. The investigation was closed on November 30, 2023. The Chief's office reviewed the report and found Ms. Whetstone's allegations to be unfounded. Ms. Whetstone was notified of the Chief's findings and has chosen to appeal the findings to the City Manager. The City Manager has referred this appeal to the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeals Board and requests a disposition recommendation. This appeal is before you this evening.
Okay, thank you. And I will now resume where I left off. So to recap the last point, is there any member of the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board who is unable to render an unbiased opinion on this appeal due to a relational, financial, or other conflict of interest? Okay, we will hear from the appellant, and they will disagree on why they disagree with the Chief's determination of the complaint. At the conclusion of the appellant's presentation, board members will have the opportunity to ask the appellant for clarification or any additional detail. After hearing from the appellant, we will hear from the investigator to describe the investigation that was undertaken to form the Chief's findings. At the conclusion of the investigator's presentation, board members will have the opportunity to ask the investigator for clarification or additional detail. The appellant has requested that the hearing is open to the public. While the hearing is open to the public, we request that there are no outbursts of any kind. While there will not be an opportunity for public comments during the hearing, all regular Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board meetings are open to the public and offer an opportunity for public comment on any topic. After hearing from the appellant and the investigator, the board will adjourn and go into closed deliberation, and the public will be excused. At the conclusion of its deliberation and within 14 business days of the close of the hearing, the CIPS-RAB will prepare a written report to be submitted to the City Manager with a recommendation to sustain or amend the Chief's findings. Lastly, the City Manager shall have final authority to sustain or amend the Chief's finding and will notify the appellant of the determination within 20 business days following the appeal hearing. So with that, outline, I would like to open the floor for the appellant to share her point. Thank you.
Hello? Yes. Okay, I was glad to have the opportunity to speak because the officer actually started with my neighbor upstairs. I had the papers here to prove. I tried to talk to him and show him, and I did receive the chief letter that was mailed to me. I wonder how they have an investigation without me, without the lady upstairs. And then I asked him about his body cam. They say he had it on, but it wasn't on. Found it odd. Every time they deal with people of color, they got it on, but it ain't on. He was rude. He talked to me like I was trying to show him this. He don't want to see nothing. He didn't want me to say nothing. He kept telling me, shut up, shut up. First of all, my music was on, but anybody who played music, I got a screen though. I see somebody turn to my door or my phone ring. First thing I do is turn my music down. So he really had no real reason to be selling there after he told me to turn it down. But then he insists that I turn it off because this was his second time coming now. I told him, I said, she just called her, she's not even there. She left. The first time she was there, I saw her leave. She called him again. I tried to show him that everything, the write-up we got from the office, everything. I never got a write-up from the office about music. Actually, I'm 62 years old. I rarely play my music. I'm a grandmama, I'm a great-grandmama. He said, that's the problem. I kept trying to push these papers on him and show him. He said, that's the problem. I don't know if he said, you people don't listen or y'all don't listen. At that point, I closed my door, told him do what he got to do. I received this in the mail. This says 386 or something. I received that in the mail. I received this in the mail. I asked the officer, he said they need me or the neighbor upstairs to have their investigation. So who did they investigate? If they didn't investigate me and the neighbor upstairs to find out what truly happened, who did they investigate? And how do you have an investigation on me without me? I just want to have my say. I don't play my music all the time. I never got a write-up from my complex for playing my music or anything. He was just, okay, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. He was a little white guy, and I think he was just being a little cocky, aggressive. He was aggressive, he was nasty, and he was rude. And that's basically all I got to say. If he would have had his body cam on, like I told the chief here, I wouldn't have no letters or nothing. If y'all actually had his body cam on when they approached people of color, they wouldn't have a job. They wouldn't, because they mostly harsh, nasty, and rude to us. That was about make America great. We all know we've never been considered Americans. I just wanted to say my say. I got my papers if y'all want to look at them. Nah, they all right here. From the start with the neighbor upstairs, to the write-up from the office, to the mailing of these two letters, from the chief staff I get that I had to sign for. I got two of them, they right here. I just think that ain't fair. People getting shot in the head over there, killed. And he worried about me playing my music. Thank you.
Ms. Wetton, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to explain to us your side of the story. We're really grateful for that, and this is an opportunity for you to do just that. With that said, I would like to open the floor to the board members if you have any questions that you would seek further clarification.
During your interaction with the officer afterwards, did he give you a card that had my 90 on that?
No, he gave me nothing because he was outside my screen. I was inside my screen. He telling me I'm trying to push the papers on him. He didn't want to see nothing. He gonna be quiet. He didn't give me, no. He never gave me it, but I did receive it in the mail.
And you also said that you were trying to give him papers during that interaction. What were those papers again?
The papers from repression charges against the neighbor upstairs. She had blood in her mouth and she spit on my jacket. I called the office, he came out. He took pictures of my jacket and everything. From that point on, she became mean and nasty. But she always mean and nasty. So it was nothing new. It just never was with me.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. I just have a couple of questions for you, okay? In the report, let me back it up. When you play your music, do you always play it with the door open and the screen door?
Not in the wintertime, it's summertime. I mean, it was summertime.
Okay.
Our speakers about this high.
Okay,
If I had it on low, it would still be loud.
okay.
But I
So,
don't play it that often, so the community have no complaint. She only did that out of vengeance, out of be spiteful.
okay,
I still play my music, she danced to it.
okay, ma'am. You said that because of the size of your speakers, even though when your door is open, the music still sounds loud, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you understand, or were you ever made aware that for a noise complaint, if the officer can hear the music and justifies it being loud,
You must
someone
hear me
doesn't,
when I say-
ma'am,
Okay, I'm gonna let you finish.
ma'am, someone doesn't have to call in the complaint because he can write the citation based on the fact that he hears the loudness of the music.
I hear what you're saying,
Yes, ma'am.
but just to hear what I'm saying,
Yes, ma'am.
I play my music all the time.
I understand.
No, if an officer just came and told me that, I'd just turned it off. That'd be the end for me. But I try to show him it was out of spite that she was even calling him.
Okay.
See, she wasted y'all the police time, not me.
Okay, ma'am. I understand there had been a previous issue, but I'm trying to separate the previous issue from this issue.
If
Okay.
I'm playing my music and the police officer can hear it, it's bothering him, what do you think I'm gonna do? First of all, if I see him walking to my door, it goes down. Just like if my telephone rings, it goes down. So how could he hear something that I already went down? Because I see you coming.
Okay, I just want to ask you one more question one time,
Sure.
just to confirm that I understood. So you said the height of your speakers, the door
I have
open.
one speaker, it's just one speaker, one of the Bluetooth speakers.
Yes, ma'am.
That's it.
Yes, ma'am. The height of your speaker, singular, with the door open and the screen door.
You're saying speaker. I'm saying speaker.
No, ma'am.
You saying speakers.
No, ma'am. I'm from New Orleans, so maybe you're hearing my accent. Speaker, singular, individual. One.
Okay.
I agree with that. With one speaker,
Yes, sir.
door open, screen door, you said that can be loud, correct?
Of course.
Okay,
I'm not denying that I was playing my music.
okay. Now,
What I'm trying to say, if you're at home playing your music, if your phone rings or someone knocks on your door, the first thing you do is turn it down.
but
It's just
prior,
common sense. I mean, okay.
but prior to the phone ringing or someone coming to the door, it is at
I'm in
what
my house,
volume?
what music I'm cooking or cleaning or whatever I'm doing. Yes, and the TV at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening. The second time he came, Did you turn the music off that time?
No, I seen him coming. I turned it down.
Turn it down again.
I turned it down. Like I said, my screen door. I see if you walk to my door. I got a screen door. I see you. I turned it down.
And at that time, you were trying to give him papers?
I was trying to explain to him
What
why
was
my
going on?
neighbor is doing this out of spite and vengeful.
And at that time, he did not, according to you, give you a citation?
No, I got it in the mail. I got it in the mail because after he said, that's the problem, we don't listen. Y'all, we, or whatever, how he said it. I didn't know if he talked about my blackness or my gayness. I closed the door.
So you closed the door
Yes, sir.
on him, and
I closed the door. That's it.
that's the reason you know you didn't get a citation?
Yes, sir. You want to see the one I got in the mail? It's right here.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir.
one more question. Well, a couple more questions. You said he never looked you in your face, but noticed your hair.
He's standing at the door like this, with his hand in his pocket. I'm trying to talk to him. I'm standing this way. I'm supposed to be facing him. He's sideways like this.
But noticed your hair without looking in your face.
Know who?
Noticed your hair without looking in your face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he knows my haircut and did not look at me in my face.
And then final question is, how do you know the body cam wasn't on?
Because I asked him right here, who sent me this letter, and he responded back. The officer said he had it on, but it wasn't on. Call him and ask him yourself, because I sure did.
Okay.
Good evening. Prior to the police arriving, did the neighbor ask you to turn the music down herself?
No, she couldn't come in my house to turn my music down.
Well, not come into your home, just knock on your door. My neighbors have kids sometimes, they
But let me
play a
tell you,
little
see,
loud. I asked them.
before we had Spike's incident, she spit blood on me and I called the police. We were neighbors. She didn't call the police. I play my music down. We'll speak. But I still play my music.
Does anybody have any more questions?
I have one more.
Sure.
You mentioned that you never received anything from the office, your apartment complex?
No, I did. We both did. She got 2, I got 1.
In reference to your music?
No, about the tragedy that happened on 7/23/23.
Is that in reference to her spitting on you?
Yes, and she got 1. I got 1. She got 2. It had nothing to do with music. I got mine right here if you want to see it and read it. From Interface Homes, here you go.
Sure.
But anything else y'all want, you can make a copy of all if you like. Yes, ma'am. The rest, you're gonna meet these from the chief. Yes, ma'am.
I do have one question, ma'am. When the officer first arrived the very first time to your place, and you had kind of had that conversation the very first time around, and he asked you to turn it down, did you do so for the rest of the evening until the second time that he turned up?
No, she wasn't even at home. She lived upstairs, I live downstairs. She came downstairs, car pulled up, they pulled off. She heard my music, she called him again.
But my question being,
I asked the officer, we go upstairs. He said, that's not his, knock on the door, you'll see nobody's there, sir. He said, that's not his job.
I understand, but my question to you in particular is, the very first time when he turned up and he asked you to turn the volume down.
I turned it down, sir.
Correct.
Correct.
Once you turned that down, did you kept it at that level for the rest of the evening, or once the officer left?
No, sir, and I ain't gonna say I kept it at the same level. No, I didn't.
You did not.
No, sir. No, sir.
So am I I don't want to assume, so I will ask you, did you turn it up once the police officer left?
Not just acting like he got back in the truck, I turned it up. But I mean, the music was good. I was really good. I turned it up. I'm not gonna say I did because I know I did.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty, thank you.
But sir,
Okay. Does anybody have any further question, or should we just wait for the printouts to come back?
I have one more question. When you turned your music back up, was it after you saw the neighbor leave, or did you just
Yes.
turn it up?
yes, no, it was. I knew she was gone, but she came down. She heard it still, and she called him anyway. Yes, I did. I seen her get in the car and leave the parking lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no further questions to Ms. Watson, we would like to then open the floor to, the Office of Professional Standards to carry out their presentation, and then we'll follow up with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good evening, Vice Chair, board members, and city staff. I'm Chuck Mason. I'm the inspector with the Office of Professional Standards. And we're here tonight for, at least I'm up here, for our response to PCR 2023-0024. So this case was filed by, or this complaint rather, was filed by Tammy Whetstone on October 26th of last year. And the complaint regarded a contact that occurred on August 1st of that year, in which PSO Spieldunner issued Ms. Whetstone a citation for excessive noise. On that date, PSO Spieldunner was called to Ms. Whetstone's address twice within the same hour for loud music, first at 8:09 p.m. Upon his arrival, he heard loud noise coming from Ms. Whetstone's apartment, which he deemed constituted a noise violation, and that would have been her music. He made contact with her and gave her a verbal warning to turn down the music. Shortly after leaving, at 8:25 p.m., the officer was called back to the scene as Ms. Whetstone's music had turned back on or increased in volume. The officer made contact with Ms. Whetstone at the door, and before leaving, issued her a citation for excessive noise. On October 26th, Ms. Whetstone submitted a complaint via telephone to Professional Standards regarding this August 1st contact with KDPS. And she made the following allegations against PSO Spieldunner. First, that PSO Spieldunner never issued her the citation for excessive noise. And second, that during their verbal interaction, PSO Spieldunner was rude, unprofessional, and made a discriminatory remark to Ms. Whetstone based on her race and/or sexual orientation. The Office of Professional Standards investigated Ms. Whetstone's complaint by conducting an interview with her, interviewing the involved officer, and examining the call for service notes as well as the citation that was issued. Note on the body-worn camera. So due to the length of time between when the incident occurred and when Ms. Whetstone made her complaint, the retention period for the officer's body-worn camera had passed, and the video was deleted through the automatic purging process. So in this case, the video would have been saved under a citation-related category, which has a 60-day retention period. So I had our department IT personnel conduct an audit on PSO Spieldunner's videos and confirm that the events during this call were recorded, but that they were no longer available as they were purged through the system during the normal cleanup process in the first week of October. So as this investigation relied heavily on my interview with the involved officer, I wanted to make a comment about officer interviews. So at the beginning of all IA interviews, the investigator, typically me, reads the officer their Garrity and interview rights. So these rights serve as a reminder to the officer that the interview is compelled, which means that it's not voluntary, that the officers are forced to talk and tell the truth under threat of termination, and that the interviews are protected from release because they are compelled. So in your copy of the report, you'll see that the officer interview is redacted, and that's because of Garrity protections. So during the interviews, officers are not informed beforehand of what information professional standards has about the case. So, which means that the officers don't know what I already know. So from an officer's perspective, there's a high likelihood of being caught in a lie, which they know is a tremendous risk based on the inevitable consequences, because the inevitable consequence of lying in this profession is termination. So based on the potential consequences of failing to tell the truth, the officer interviews are given considerable weight during the investigative process. So to address the first allegation, so the issue is not whether a citation was actually written. So one was issued via the computer on the date and the time of this incident. And those dates and times can't be changed. They're time-stamped into a system which goes to the court. So then the issue at hand is whether the officer provided Ms. Whetstone with a copy of the ticket. So in his interview, the officer stated that when he arrived at Ms. Whetstone's apartment the first time, he heard loud music as he walked up, enough so to substantiate a noise violation. He told Ms. Whetstone to turn down the music, and she informed him she had no intention of doing so. PSO Spieldunner told me during our interview that he initially did not issue a citation to Ms. Whetstone in quote, good faith that she might voluntarily comply. But when he was called back a few minutes later and found that the conditions had not changed, he took enforcement action. In her interview with Professional Standards, Ms. Whetstone stated that PSO Spieldunner told her during that interaction to turn on the music or he was going to write a citation. And in her response, she told him to do what you got to do. So then PSO Spieldunner went to his cruiser, wrote the citation, returned, and subsequently issued it to her. So in the citation notes, which are written by the officer at the time of the incident, PSO Spieldunner wrote that he issued Ms. Whetstone the citation. And when he cleared the call, he also put the same information in the dispatch notes, and that's time-stamped in the dispatch software. And then he would later confirm in his interview with Professional Standards that he issued the citation directly to Ms. Whetstone. And specifically, he said that he physically handed her a copy of the citation. Further, the citation itself requires that the officer check a box indicating that they served the citation to the defendant. It's right at the bottom, kind of right near the signature. Now, there are times where an officer does not directly serve it to a person because they're unable to for some reason, and in that case, it can be sent via certified mail, but there would certainly be additional documentation, either in the citation notes, call for service, or administratively that was done. And that was not the case. So this, Ms. Whetstone, in summary for allegation 1, Ms. Whetstone knew that she'd be cited, and the officer confirmed in his Garrity interview that he issued the citation to her, which is also reflected in his ticket and his call notes. And so based on this evidence, the allegation was closed unfounded, which means that the alleged conduct, failing to serve her the citation, did not occur. For Ms. Whetstone's second allegation, early in my conversation with Ms. Whetstone, she told me that she believed that PSO Spieldunner had been, quote, nasty to her because of her sexual orientation and or her race. She told me that PSO Spieldunner would have known that she was a lesbian because of her haircut. When I asked her for specific information about what he said to her or how he acted, she said she felt that way because of the way that he talked to her. And again, I kind of pressed her for specifics. And at that time, she stated that the officer had threatened to file a citation on her and did not look at her in the eye when he was talking to her. And then later in our conversation, she told me that PSO Spieldunner told her that, quote, "You people don't listen." During my interview with the officer, he denied that Ms. Whetstone's sexual orientation, his perception of it rather, or her race caused him to treat her any differently or to take enforcement action against her, and that he was not aware of her sexual orientation at the time of the interaction. And he also denied making the comment, "You people don't listen," or any comment like it. Further, the officer's statement that he was going to file a citation on her is not a threat, but rather a factual statement of the consequences of failing to follow the direction to turn down the music. It must also be considered that PSO Spieldunner initially did not intend to issue a citation to Ms. Whetstone and only did so after she failed to turn her music down the first time and he had to come back again, and that he approached the situation in good faith. So these actions, along with his unequivocal denial of her allegations during his compelled interview, led allegation number 2 to be determined to be unfounded, which means that the alleged conduct, discriminatory or unprofessional conduct, did not occur. So that is the conclusion of professional standards case. Are there any questions from the board?
From Ms. Whetstone, yeah.
So Ms. Webster submitted this.
Yeah.
That's the paper she had when I asked her to see it. That's what
She just ran off the copies that she gave her and brought it to us.
That's in reference to the assault. When the lady
Oh,
was
it's
bit over.
Back in July. Thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to open the floor now for any questions from the board members.
Well,
I just have a brief question. It was
Simple.
mentioned that there was an investigation without the appellate. In what capacity did you interact with the appellate in reference to the investigation?
so the investigation begins with my interview with the appellant. And so it would have been, the first part of this would have been her involvement, which would have been my conversation with her via phone.
Was it just one conversation?
It was.
So I think you partially answered one of my questions with timestamps on documentation, but the software that the officers use in their vehicles, is that click-tracked at all? So can IT go back and see exactly what the officers were clicking on and when and how long they may have viewed something? For example, in medicine, my field, all of my stuff is tracked. Is there a way to track that as well for an officer?
I believe it probably depend on the program.
Okay.
But yes,
That's
short answer.
And then for same thing, we can track our printing. Are you able to track if something was actually printed in a vehicle?
That I'm actually not aware of. There is at least a short-term record when an officer is logged into a computer. I do know that. I don't know how far back that goes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple questions. The first one, in looking at the call for service information, says 8/21/2023. At 8:22, asked to keep the music down, and then at 8:26, loud music started back up. 8:27, ground floor apartment. 8:47, citation issue. So just on the time frame, did the officer leave and come back, or was he there the entire time in between the first call and the second call?
He left the complex between the two calls.
Okay, so there was about a 4-minute span between when he stopped the first contact and then came back for the second.
Correct.
Okay, and then also in the citation information, it says that 2,400 hours the citation was issued, but in the report it says at 8:47, so there's a 7-minute discrepancy between the two times.
Yes, so the citation, that timestamp is when basically the officer hits print on the computer, is when that timestamp is on the citation. The call notes, so After that would have occurred, the officer would have then left his cruiser, made contact again, come back to the cruiser, and then would have manually entered the notes within that, that 7-minute period later.
Okay. And as I understand it, the information that Garrett has retracted due to the officer's rights, but if there is a violation found, there can be some type of administrative disciplinary action if he found that it violated, correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so was there any administrative or disciplinary actions involving this incident towards that officer?
There were not.
Has this officer ever had a history, or has he been similar type of similar allegations toward him in the past? Has he ever been accused of racist or discriminatory comments in the past?
Yeah, not in my knowledge in the past couple of years I've been in this office.
Okay. And is there any way for the public to know if the body camera is on or off?
Yes. So when officers, well, yes and no is the answer to that question. So our body cameras have a regular mode and then they have a covert mode. And so a lot of times on night shift, officers will use the covert mode. And essentially what that does is that there's two lights on the front of the camera. There's a green one, which is on whenever the camera is actually like not turned on, but not recording, but it's turned on. It would essentially be in standby mode. You'll see the green light on. And then when an officer's recording, there'll be a red light that's on right next to that. And that means that camera's actually recording video. However, in covert mode, again, which is used by many officers on night shift, both the lights are turned off, which means that the officer looks down and the top screen on the camera will show its status. The reason that the covert mode is used is because at night those lights can be very bright, especially in a dark situation. And if an officer is trying to use some sort of, it can give away an officer's position. I mean, you can see him coming halfway down the block, especially in a dark situation.
Is there a policy or procedure which dictates when you go to one, like if he was going to, say, a noise complaint, is there a procedure that says which mode it has to be in, or is it at his discretion?
Just has to be on.
Okay. And you said that through the investigation, you determined that his comments weren't racial or sexual?
Correct. That there was a unequivocal denial on his part that he ever made the comments that Ms. Whetstone had alleged.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, so the only determination is just based on his word?
Oh, that's correct, yep.
Okay.
Did the first call and the second call come from the same phone number?
It appears so.
What did you say?
I said it appears so.
Okay.
Are we still using them I-90?
Yes, we do still use My 90. Thanks for bringing that up. This would not have been a case where an officer was required to hand that card out. Right now, we're only doing traffic stops where the officer hands the card out. And then in other situations, there'll be a text message sent to dispatch for certain calls directly to the person that called. So this would likely not have been a situation where My 90 was involved, because the officer doesn't hand out calls or hand out the cards on calls to service like this, and then the officer didn't make contact with the initial reportee. So.
And I guess final question for me, as far as the citation, there's nothing where the person that's issued the citation is required to sign validating that they actually received it?
Yeah, not in Michigan.
Okay.
That is required in some states, just not here.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions as well. So, just to clarify, just reading the reports, and I just kind of want to hear from you since you did the investigation. That PSO Spildner, right? Spildner, sorry. When he responded the very first time, he physically could hear the music being a violation of the ordinance, correct? So
Correct.
regardless of the call, once there, he could, it was evident that there was a violation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then with regards to, you mentioned that because of the type of call that there was and the period of time that had elapsed from the call to Ms. Whetstone's complaint, the video was purged, correct?
That's
but
correct.
You went back to the IT department and they came back to you saying that the camera was recording at the time, but obviously the video was not available. So there is evidence that the camera was recording, it's just that we cannot see the video. Is that correct?
That's correct. There would have been there essentially would have been a record that the video had existed. It said it came from this camera and was recording between these times, which basically coincided with the calls for service time.
Okay.
But we only keep those for so long.
I am aware of that, so that's fine.
Can I add something to your first question?
Of course.
Regarding the noise violation? So for an officer to issue a citation for noise, they have to observe the violation themselves.
Okay.
Someone can make a complaint for excessive noise on something that previously happened and maybe the person had turned the music off, but in that case the officer would have had to have written a case and submitted it to the city attorney for review. So there's basically two different routes that can be taken, but a citation is issued when that officer actually observes the violation.
So the same could be said that the second time that the officer turned up for the call, he also would have had to have listened to the loud music.
That's correct.
Okay.
Sorry to jump in really quick, Vice Chair, but is there a decibel level for a noise violation in the city of Kalamazoo, or what is the?
The ordinance is written that there is, but it's also that it also states in there that an officer can take enforcement action without regard to decibel level.
Okay, thank you.
So going back to the camera situation with the IT department, my question would be, so like the response that you got back during your investigation from the IT department to say that whilst you cannot access the video per se, there is records that the camera was recording during that time. Is that information sent to you like on an email, or is that like kind of data-wise, you can see the entry of the video start and the video stop kind of thing on a system? How do you get that information?
It would have been sent in when they do the kind of the back end audit, it comes out in a Excel file so it would have been a line from that Excel document.
Okay. And that's kind of what I'm getting to. So, sorry, long question is, it would have been great to have received some evidence of that, because obviously, whilst it's your word, it would have been great to see some evidence that not only that the camera was recording, but there is evidence that is being recorded that the camera was recording at the time, if that makes sense.
There's been a couple of cases where I've had that, and you don't include it because it's indecipherable if you don't know what you're looking at. But in future cases, I can certainly have that included with the information.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then just a very last question that I had, and I think it's a bit of a follow-up from Jason here, is that for the KDPS, what is the policy and the procedure say if any officer was to give out a citation to a citizen and they just simply refuse to take it, so they physically do not have it in their hands? How can that be avoided? So like, well, it was never given to me.
The officer then would explain to the person essentially what's going to happen if they're given that opportunity. You don't throw it at the person, stuff like that. If a person refuses to take it, the officer needs to do their best to explain essentially, for this case, you have 10 days to notify the court whether you choose to contest it or pay it. Kind of that spiel right there if the citizen allows that to happen. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but is there so if that situation does happen and, like I'm just going to put myself as an example, so I refuse to take it, I get the explanation, but I still refuse to take it. Is there a step further that the police officer can take, whether it's taking that ticket and recording it on the system, or just kind of to prevent this he said, she said
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Yeah, in that situation, my first answer would have been the body camera would be a great way to, but in that case, if we had that, I would have expected the officer to have put notes in the dispatch to say the person refused to take the citation. You know, it's not unheard of that a person, as soon as the officer gives them their information back, says, I've issued you a citation, the person essentially just drives off and the officer's left there holding the citation. I mean, in that case, unfortunately, you know, the person is still going to be responsible for it. So, but in those unusual situations, I would have an expectation that there would be some documentation written by the officer explaining the circumstances of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was hoping you were going to say if they did refuse to take the ticket, then there would be a certified letter sent.
And that's, I suppose that could be the case as well. It's not written in our policy. What we do is if someone is issued a citation and they are not there to take it, or there's somehow, you know, occasionally that happens in traffic crash situations with an investigation afterwards where there's certified as letter is, you know, has to be sent after. Yeah, but in those occasions, it's possible not. I mean, the person was given an opportunity essentially to take the ticket. They chose not to.
But in the end, what the officer, once you go back and if you hear the loud music, it doesn't matter whether the person is upstairs or anything else, is that because the officer told her the first time to turn it down and they came back and the music was where it was before, he could automatically issue her that ticket.
You mean
Is that what you're?
You mean if he hadn't heard a violation the second time?
No, if he heard it the second time, it doesn't matter the circumstances. If he heard it the second time he came back, and it was at the same, you know, I suppose that it was the first time, he didn't need any other excuse, but he could have issued her that citation.
Correct. The officer doesn't need a complaining witness for a violation like this.
Is it policy that you have to give a verbal warning before you can give a citation, or was that just a courtesy?
No, it's not written in. The officers have the discretion to issue the verbal warning up to a citation.
Thank you.
Okay, if no more questions from the board, then thank you, Inspector Mason.
Certainly.
So with that, I would like to move on and close the current hearing, and we'll convene in a closed session in order to deliberate for this evening. Thank you, everybody that's been present today. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.